I had already given people a lot that year. And in that time frame, I was like, I'm already gay. I'm not about to now become gay and emo and change my whole look and scare everyone off. Do you know what I mean?
Hello, my name's Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories that they created there, and the people that they used to know. So, this week, it's time to put on your skinny jeans, dig out your studded belt, and apply about a week's worth of eyeliner because we are going emo. Now, if you're listening to this episode 300 odd years from now and you're like, what the hell is emo? Let me break it down for you. So, according to dictionary.com, emo is a style of rock music resembling punk, but having more complex arrangements and lyrics that deal with more emotional subjects. Got that? And as with every good genre of music, there is a whole scene, a whole style of dress, and a whole way of thinking that goes along with being an emo. But enough of my thinly veiled judgment. This week, I am joined by comedian and podcaster Matt Hay, who is taking us to Hot Damn, an emo night in Sydney, Australia, in, of course, the most emo of all decades, the noughties. And Hot Damn sounds like it was kind of a fun place to be. So it had different rooms playing different music, it had live bands, and every month there was a themed party. And they would have like novelty pop-up things like a kissing booth or a giant mechanical bull that was actually in the shape of a penis. Yes, I know it sounds juvenile, but I want to ride that penis. Now, Matt grew up on the Central Coast, which is about 1.5 hours away from Sydney. And he says that the club helped normalise being different, and just seeing people there who were just not giving a fuck was kind of liberating. But don't take my word for it. Why don't we find out from Matt himself?
I don't remember like anyone being gay. I remember being the only gay kid at my school for a very long time until I went to secondary school. So that's like after high school, we went to a different college for year 11 and 12. That's when I like met other gay people. But before that, I was the only gay kid at my school that was out at the time.
So when did you come out?
I was maybe 15 years old, I think. So I was in year 9 at the time, and it was March. It was Mardi Gras time, which is our pride season here in Australia. And Mardi Gras was happening, and I think there was just a lot of chatter around. And I think one of my friends said to me, like, when are you going to get a girlfriend or something like that? And I was like, I think she asked if I was going to Mardi Gras or something. And I was like, no, I'm not going. And she's like, would you like to go one day? And I'm like, yeah, probably. I think it would be fun. And she's like, are you going to get a girlfriend? And I was like, no, probably not. And she was like, why not? And I was like, because I'm gay. And that's kind of like how I came out to the first person. There were times before that as well. I had come out to 2 friends before that who weren't really my friends, and they just like told everyone. That was probably in year 8, but I still wasn't ready. So they told everyone, like the whole school. I remember telling them at recess, and by lunchtime, the whole school knew. And I wasn't ready for that. So I just said that we'd been in a fight. And I was like, they're just lying because I've been in a fight with them. So they're trying to get back at me, and tried to dodge that bullet. And then, yeah, it wasn't until a year later that I came out, but then still didn't tell my parents and things like that for like ages. And it wasn't until probably another year till that happened.
Tell me about that.
Well, I came out to my mum because I know that like people started talking in the community. The Central Coast is very close knit, although there's a big
Oh, yeah.
population. Like it's very,
Like everyone knows everyone's business.
everyone knows everyone's business. And so some people, it had got to some mothers, and I had heard that at school pickup, some of the mums were talking about me being gay. And my mum wasn't there, but that got fed back to me. And I was like, oh, I think it's just getting a bit too close to home now. Like maybe I should tell my mum. And so I did.
Oh, so it just wasn't on your terms then.
No, but also I feel like it just ripped the band-aid off, and coming out for me really wasn't like the big hoo-ha that I think it is for a lot of people. Like a lot of
Mm.
people feel quite liberated, and coming out is a great thing for them. And obviously there's the other side of the coin that people come out and they don't think it's a big deal at all and shouldn't be a big deal. I kind of sit on the fence with that. I'm like, if you don't want it to be a big deal, that's great. Although, like, there are some people who come out and it's so liberating for them that it really changes their life and they feel a certain type of way. Now, for me, it definitely changed my life because I felt like it allowed me to be myself more around everybody and not be on edge that someone was going to figure out that I was gay. But yeah, I definitely, I mean, I guess I told my mum on my own terms in my own way, but also there wasn't any like, oh, I have to do this. It's just kind of like maybe the time is now. And so it all worked out anyway. And then my parents were separated. So I didn't tell my dad until the next year, which was 2010. And I actually got bashed at school by one of the school bullies who didn't like me for being gay. I literally like didn't have any problem. I didn't have a problem with like anyone in high school. Like I was just trying to mind my own business and just get through life. And I really didn't want to step a toe out of line. Like I was just like, if you can be nice to me, I'll be nice to you, and we'll get on
Hmm. Hmm.
with our lives. Like please just leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. That's it. But unfortunately that didn't happen with this one person who bashed me, and then obviously I like had to go to hospital. The police were
Shit.
involved. It was all a big thing. And so that's when my dad found out because he asked for a reason, and my mum actually told my dad. And at the time, I was like angry at my mum for like stealing that opportunity away from me. And I was like, that was my right to kind of tell him and have that conversation with him. But also, I look back now and I'm like, thank God she told him because I just couldn't be bothered. Like, I couldn't be bothered with the drama of having to sit my dad down and go through all of
It's
that.
couldn't be bothered the right term.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like I think about it now and I go, thank God she did tell him because like I just didn't really want to have that conversation. I mean, I had been out for 2 years almost, and he still didn't know, or I still
But you
hadn't
didn't
told him.
you didn't want to have that conversation because of your relationship with him or because you were at a point where you were like, oh, this is too exhausting.
I don't think I was at the point in my relationship with him. Like my dad and I have a great relationship now, and we kind of like always have, but he just didn't really, he says he didn't even realize or he didn't even know. Whereas my mum was like, I knew from the minute you could walk that you were
Hmm.
walking gay, you know? And my dad was like, I never would have even picked up on this. And like that baffled me because I was kind of like,
Wow,
you
yeah.
know, do you even know me at all? Because if you didn't figure out that I was gay, like what's going on? Are you paying attention? Kind of is what my vibe was at the time. Like,
Oh, so you turned around and used it against him. Brilliant.
yeah. But like I actually think that like coming out almost may have made us closer because like since then our relationship has been very good. Not that we ever had a bad relationship, but it
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
I just remember thinking to myself, like, if you couldn't have figured out I was gay, like, are you even paying attention to me at all? But now, like, my dad is my biggest supporter and literally helps me make some of my fabulous outfits that I wear, and he comes to my shows and all the rest of that. So I just spoke to him earlier today, actually, and we had a great catch
Mm.
up. So
It's a funny thing though, isn't it? Like not to generalize about dads, but I wonder what it is that makes them not pay attention to those kind of things.
I don't know. I think it's also because I just have always been a people pleaser. And as I said, like, I just kind of wanted to get through life without stepping a toe out of line. And so, like, if my dad asked me to do something, like, I was doing it. So, growing up, did a lot of renovations around the house. And so my dad would be like, get up, it's Sunday, you're coming out and helping me build a deck. We're building a deck. We're building a fish pond. We're landscaping the backyard. I feel like I just did what he asked of me. And so
But you did it in a swishy way, presumably.
well, don't know. I can't really remember if I did or not, but perhaps it was very straight acting of me to nail the deck.
Oh, sounds like it would hurt. Um, and so can we pick up a bit more on this feeling of, oh, do you really know me at all? Was that
Hmm.
a lingering feeling that you had, or was it kind of a more of a fleeting thing that was resolved quite quickly?
Oh, no, it lingered for a few years, definitely. I mean, it wasn't so much of a problem that it affected my day to day life, but I just remember thinking after he found out for him to be like, I didn't even know. It kind of was like, do you even know me at all? And that definitely was like a thing for a few years. But you have to understand as well, like my parents were going through a divorce at the time. And also he had started a new relationship. So he was very like distant anyway, doing his own thing. My mum was taking it not well. And so I felt very disconnected from my whole family. And then in turn, full
Mm-hmm.
circle moment, that is how I found my people and my friends who then ended up taking me to Hot Dam because I felt lost because my family had broken up and both my parents I felt like and at the time like it was obviously very hard. I wasn't thinking too much about it, but now as an adult I also can look back on that situation and be like, they had their own issues going on. They had their own problems that they were sorting out in their own lives together and apart. And so my whole thing is like I just kind of I never started to rebel, but I just like went with a different crowd and did things that I wouldn't normally do, and was going out to lots more parties and things like that. And you have to understand as well, like it's also the time that I just come out, so I'm also now trying to express myself in more authentic ways because I've hidden for so long. So a lot of things were happening. It was like a volcano erupting all at once in my life of all these different things happening. So basically, I was just trying to like find myself and my place. And that's when I landed in this group of like random people who all had a difference about them. And
Which I think brings me to the question that I've been dying to ask you pretty much all afternoon. Were you a teenage emo?
I guess you could say that. But I always had blonde hair.
Well, was that just one step too far, dyeing your hair?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely was in the scene, is what we would call it back in the day. So a lot of my friends would have been the traditional emo, and I definitely was into the emo culture and listening to screamo music, pop goes punk, all of those sorts of things. But I could never adjust my aesthetic to truly fit into the emo aesthetic. So I had the side fringe, I was straightening the hair and doing all of that, but it was always bleach
Skinny
blonde.
tie? Did you have a skinny tie on all the time?
Yes, had a skinny tie, but I
Ah,
also
amazing.
was no stranger to a bow tie. So the bow tie and the glasses and
Ooh,
the suspenders, I was doing all of
suspenders.
that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Superman t-shirt, the whole thing.
But is it just that you don't like dyeing your hair, or was it a specific thing about dyeing your
Yeah,
hair at that
I
time?
think first of all, my mum wouldn't let me, my hairdresser wouldn't let me, and also everyone was like, once you dye your hair black, you'll never be blonde again. And I didn't know whether I could let that go.
Aww.
And still to this day, never dyed my hair black. So
But okay, so talk to me about what is so appealing about emo culture.
well, I think like it was just one of the first places to fit in, like as a queer person growing up, obviously we don't really know where we fit. And then to find a group of people who maybe weren't necessarily queer, but definitely had a lot of the same feelings of when you break it down, we're a bit different. We like different things. We go against the norm. And so a lot of my friends, although they weren't queer, they were definitely like in that emo scene, which wasn't fully queer, but definitely had a large queer community as a part of it.
Hmm.
Because I think we all just kind of had a lot of differences and were all, at the end of the day, like no matter what you were bullied for, you were bullied. You know what I mean? So we all kind of stuck together
Mm-mm.
because of that.
And what are your top three emo song recommendations?
Mm. So here's the thing. Like I was like the full-on screamo I couldn't really get into, but for me, I loved like Simple Plan, Green Day. I loved any of the Pop Goes Punk albums where they would like take a pop song like from Lady Gaga, but then put a punk spin on it. Like it would be a cut. It's like albums full of covers from those artists. So going to like club nights and things like that, that's what I was after is hearing all of those songs. But it was good because it was always kind of split up anyway. Like you could go into a room and it was just screamo, and you could go into another room and it was like a live band, and then you could go into another room and it was kind of that pop goes punk. So that's where I kind of hung out most of the night.
Mm-hmm. And so, does this bring us to Hot Damn then? Is that the first emo night that you ever went to?
Yeah, definitely. I just loved it so much. I remember one of my friends introduced it to me when I was 18 years old. And I went a couple of times, but I was a little bit like nervous about the whole thing because obviously I was like friends with all these people who would classify themselves as emos or scene queens, but being in that environment was like very different because I didn't present as one. Like I had the blonde hair, and I know that a lot of people wore a lot of black, whereas like I was wearing like Hawaiian shirts and all this. Like, not only am I in a group of people who are different to society, I'm then even more different than them. And so the first couple of times were a bit nerve wracking. I think like the first time that I really got amongst it was my 19th birthday, where I chose to have my 19th birthday there. And they would do, I guess, themed nights. So it was always hot damn, always had the same music, always had the same vibe, always had the same people coming. But they would do fun, different things. Like they'd do like a spring break one where like you dressed up in costumes and
So let's not go straight to your 19th. Before that, do you remember the very first time you ever went there?
yeah, the first time that I went there was definitely like it was. I don't remember what the theme was. I remember we didn't plan to go, but it was after another event that we had in Sydney that same night, and I can't remember what that event would have been. But I remember being with because I kind of had like a group of friends that we just always went to everything. We may have even just been going to the shops. We just went to Sydney for things to do because I grew up on the Central Coast, which is about an hour and a half north of Sydney, and not
Mm-hmm.
much happens there. It is big, like it has a big population. There's a lot of people that live there, and it's a big area, but nothing really happens. So we were always looking to escape down to the city. Even if we wanted to go to, say, the movies, like we wouldn't go. I mean, sometimes we would go to the local movies, but we just go down to Sydney to go to the movies because that's just a bit more camp and a bit more fun and gave us something to do. And the train ride's like an hour and a half. So we get on the train and just escape down to the city. And I remember we were down there, and then one of our friends who regularly went, so in high school, she would actually, because Hot Damn was every Thursday night at the Exchange Hotel. And so she would get on the train on a Thursday after school in her school uniform. She'd change on the train, get down there, meet up with her friends. They might have a few drinks beforehand. Then she'd go to the club, and then she'd leave at like 2 o'clock in the morning, get back on the train, come home, and put her school uniform back on and come back to school. So
Oh,
I had seen like how much she loved it. And when we realized we were in Sydney on a Thursday night, we were like, oh, we should definitely go. And I remember going, and they had like a door girl there who was marking off everyone's names. I think someone had got us on a list last minute because, you know, they had door lists, and you'd get $5 off. And I think that meant that like Emily got a drink card if you used her name or something. We went upstairs, like you kind of went through the front door and upstairs and into this really, everything was really dark. Like all the walls were black, everything was black. And that's where you saw like the band playing. And the band room was always really quiet. And so I walked in, and seeing the band as the first room, I was kind of like, oh, this is it. It was kind of like the chill out room. Like there were tables and things, people sitting on like kind of booths and whatnot. And I kind of remember being like, is this it? And everyone was like, no, don't worry. We're going, to this other section because I think you could go up another level. And bear in mind as well, this was all happening around 2012, 2013. 2013 is when I would have had my 19th birthday there. And I think I stopped going maybe 2014. And then the club actually shut down in 2015, but we'll get there. But we went into then like the screamo room, and again I was like, this is fun, this is a vibe. Like it was just DJs playing screamo music, so it was very full on. There was like a little mosh pit, death circle, whatever they call that, people like running at each other and punching each other and going crazy. And look, that's not my vibe. Like I'm not going to be in the middle of it, but I definitely love being in the room and I love watching that. Like I'm all about watching that. And then there was this tiny little smoking area, and my friends were smokers. So we went out to this little smoking area after enjoying the show of everyone bashing each other in the screamo room. We went out to this little smoking area, which was like a balcony on the side of the building that looked like it had just been stapled to the side of the building with like a
Ooh.
cage around it.
Ooh.
And it was really tiny and it was a lot. And so I was standing out there and I remember being like to my friends, okay, so like the band was camp, like the screamo room was camp. I'm just like, I thought, I don't know if it's my vibe though, but I'm having a good time regardless. And then after they finished their cigarettes, we like went back inside and went to the bathrooms and then saw this other room, which is where the pop goes punk music kind of. So that's like it's not your screamo music, it's like the lighter stuff, like as I said, the Simple Plan, the Green Day, the things like that, where it's like still punk, it's still a bit scene emo, like the emo kids are listening to it, but it's not so full on. And so that's where I really enjoyed it. And then they had Pop Goes Punk, so they were playing like Rihanna songs, which I loved, but then it was like this punk version of it. And then that's where I discovered they were whole albums that were out, and I ran out to Kmart to go and get them because this is before the time of like streaming and stuff like that. And I don't remember most of the night because I remember we had so many drinks. It was kind of ridiculous.
And so, I mean, you've just told me that you were really drunk, so you might not be able to remember this, but how did it feel to be there?
Well, it felt good because I had heard so much about it. And I think that one of the biggest things that I learned that night was how many queer people were, one, in that same community as me. Because remember, my friends that I was friends with were emo, but they weren't queer. Some of them are now and they've come out later in life, but at the time, 10 years ago, they weren't. So I was the only queer one in that group. So then to get there, I remember just throughout the night meeting people in the smoking area or in the club in that chill out room as well, is where a lot of people just kind of hung out and talked and met people and things like that. I remember like meeting so many queer people. Also, there were some people from my school as well, some gay boys from my school who just so happened to be there the same night. And so it was a night of connection, really, of like seeing that not only was there this community that I kind of joined in a way, there was then this deeper community of queer people who I didn't realize, you know, I didn't realize at the time, but what I was experiencing was my first ever safe space. And I felt, although it was really crazy and wild, and I was like, what is going on? I felt really at home. And so I think that whole night was just about having fun, letting loose, having lots of drinks. I don't know if I kissed anyone the first night I went. I probably didn't. I was a bit of a pussy back then. I was a bit scared to do anything crazy. But yeah, I think like what I took from it was, first of all, like how much fun I had. Second of all, I didn't have to worry because the clubs that I had been to in the past, especially on the Central Coast where I grew up, like I was worried every step I took in that club. I was like, am I going to piss someone off? Like, is someone going to try and bash me? Is there going to be a straight guy that wants to hook up with one of my friends and like I'm in the way? So then he is angry at me. There's all those sorts of things running through my brain when I was at a club on the Central Coast, and then going down to Sydney and finding this space. I was like, oh, everyone here just wants to have a good time and no one really cares about each other or what you're doing or anything. No one's really got a problem with anyone. I felt very safe. I felt very like, I'm just here to have a good time and everyone's here to have a good time and we're all just cool with each other. In fact, that's the vibe that it kind of took through every single time that I went, is that I just felt no judgment. I felt like we had all been judged on the outside world so much that when we all got together, like there was none of that. And that was really cool.
And I'm really interested in this Venn diagram of the overlaps between the emo scene and the queer scene.
Hmm.
And I'm also really interested in the fact that you never felt emo enough. And I want to explore that a bit more because, like, you knew that you wanted to get into that scene. You knew that you were like attracted to the scene, let's say,
Hmm.
but you never threw yourself fully in. And why do you think that is?
I think the main thing was I still didn't have parents that I thought would be, you know what's so weird? Like I knew my parents would be accepting of my gay lifestyle. And I don't know if they'd
Lifestyle?
be a lifestyle, but I don't think that they would be accepting of my emo lifestyle. Like if I went full on with the piercings,
Oh,
like the tongue piercing, the lip piercing, nose piercings, earrings, black hair, I think that actually would have shocked them more than me being gay. I honestly think they would have had more of a problem with that. And I mean, again, this is 10 years ago. Now, if I decided to do any of those things, they wouldn't even bat an eyelid. But, 10 years
not
ago, or
even
this
one
was
eyelid?
maybe even more. I don't, maybe my mum would, but my dad would be like, cool. I think as well, like, I was still scared of people judging me. And I can't say for sure, but I do think that a lot of people, like I had already given people a lot that year. And in that time frame, I was like, I'm already gay. I'm not about to now become gay and emo and change my whole look and scare everyone off. Do you know what I mean? But in all seriousness, I just don't think that the emo aesthetic is my aesthetic. And I don't think it was at the time. Like I remember I didn't want to dye my hair black. I was like, I'll straighten the fringe, I'll comb it over side fringe, I'll have it over my eyes, but it's going to be blonde because I'm not doing black hair. So that was definitely my thing. And the other conversations around it, like the dyeing your hair black and then getting back to blonde is the hardest thing ever. And
I don't think it's the hardest thing ever.
really, well, I've never tried because I am too worried that it will be. I've spent too much money on this blonde hair, but I've got a hairdressing appointment tomorrow. So maybe we'll just
Oh,
go crazy and
yeah.
go
Just
black.
embrace and say, like, do you also do piercings?
Yeah. And just give me a whole sleeve tattoo while you're at it.
No, but this kind of brings us to another comment that you've made about being a people pleaser by nature. Are you still very much a people pleaser?
Yes and no. I feel like I am for the majority. I just don't do drama. I don't do time wasters. I don't do whatever. Like, if it's going to make you happy, I'll be happy because you're happy. Everybody's happy. You know what I mean? That's what I meant. If it's easier for me to just put in 5% more effort to make someone happy so I don't have to deal with the 50% of effort it will take if they have a problem, that's how I look at things. That's how I go about life. The easiest way I can put it is if someone asks me to do something and I'm like, oh, I don't really have the time, but it's only going to take me 5 minutes to actually sit down and do it. Sure, I'll do it for you because I can't deal with the fact that if I say no to that person, suddenly I'm the worst person in the world. Oh, he wouldn't even do this 5 minute job for me. Like, do you know what I mean? I can't deal with all of
What
that
kind
kind
of
of stuff.
people do
Can't
you
be
surround
bothered.
yourself with?
Just look, that's just one aspect. That's just one example that I've come up with of like how I'm a people pleaser. But I think like I am a people pleaser because it, in turn, in my opinion, saves me from doing more work down the track to resolve if they have an issue.
Hmm.
But on top of that, I also have a backbone these days. Like, I think the difference is before I was a people pleaser, but I was a pushover. I do anything and everything and anything you asked and blah, 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 blah. Whereas now, I'm still a people pleaser. I still want to make people happy and things like that, but I have a backbone. Like, I know where I stand with myself and in my business and in what I want to do. So I think that that's the growth that I've had.
Mm. Okay, so why don't we go back to Hot Damn and explore a bit more? Did you have any queer experiences in this space?
Definitely like hooked up with boys, but not a lot. Like, not heaps of queer experiences, but I remember seeing lots of queer experiences in the club.
Oh, so you're a voyeur.
I just think as well, like, I definitely didn't really come into, I still feel like even to this day, like, there could be more things I'm yet to learn about myself. So that club was the first time I had ever experienced like queer culture or queer people congregating in a group sort of thing. Like I'd never, on the Central Coast, never seen a gay person apart from people at school, maybe. And then some people in the emo scene, but never really got close enough to them to have a real friendship or anything like that. We just kind of knew each other from being in the same kind of friend groups and things like that. But we weren't close or anything like that. So I had no like close queer friends and things. And so going down, it was the first time I was experiencing all of that. So I think I was just happy to experience it instead of like being in it and living in it. And of course, now I sit here and go, I wish I did everything in those bathrooms that I could. But at the time, I definitely was still quite reserved and quite just like looking from afar, being like, wow, I can't believe I'm seeing two boys kiss in front of me or two girls kiss in front of me. I think I was like so in awe of experiencing that was enough for me. I was like, I'm done. I've got the mental note. That's all good.
Put that in the wank bank. Can we talk more about this seeing queerness in the wild and what impact that had on you?
Well, it was obviously very affirming. It was very liberating to see that. But also, I think it's the fact that I saw it and no one had a problem with it around was actually probably the really special thing. Is it was one thing to see two people of the same sex hooking up in front of me. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But I think what actually got me is the fact that like everyone around was minding their own business. And my whole thing was like, if I did this in a club back home, we'd be kicked out, we'd be bashed, we'd be called names, whatever. But I think that's actually probably what shocked me is the fact that it was happening and it wasn't affecting anyone else around them.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And I still get that feeling. Like we went out for dinner last night and then to see the Beyonce film. And I remember at dinner seeing two boys outside the restaurant, and we weren't even in a queer area, but two boys outside the restaurant met up and kissed each other on the lips. And I just went, I love it. You know what I mean? Like, I just love seeing that in public still to this day. And from memory, last night, no one had a problem either. So maybe we're headed in the right direction, people.
Maybe. And so, did that translate when you had your kissing experiences? We've used the word experience a lot in this conversation, but
It was a little different because all the girls were around me screaming. So I definitely had,
like egging you on.
like they were all like, woo! So they were all egging me on, yeah. So it was a bit different for me that night because it was my birthday. So I was obviously the center of attention for most of the night. But there was a moment in that night that I actually saw someone that I had known from the Central Coast who was also queer, and again, one of those people who I just met through the scene and things like that. And they were there, and we got dancing together, and we ended up kissing on the dance floor.
Ooh.
And I don't even really remember that. I don't remember if anyone was looking. I know the girls weren't there. The girls had had enough by that point. They were like, we just need to chill out. And I was like, well, it's my birthday. I'm still going. So I think I'd, from memory, gone to the dance floor by myself. And it was actually in the Screamo room where everything was really full on. And I saw the guy that I knew. And so we kind of just got dancing together. I had this big birthday sash on, making it all about me. And he was like, it's your birthday. And I think it was like 1 a.m. So it had actually been my birthday like the previous day. So at 12 o'clock, it stopped being my birthday.
Well, no, that's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't stop
but,
being your birthday until you go to bed.
That's exactly right. But I think like I was just that was my way of flirting, I guess. I don't know.
Okay,
But I was like,
here I've ruined it.
It was like an hour ago. It ended an hour ago. So like you missed celebrating with me. And then he was like, okay, well, I'll make up for it with this. And then he absolutely went for it and I went for it and it was great. And again, I can't really remember the moment on the dance floor, whether anyone was looking. I can't really remember even how I felt at the time. I had had many drinks and I had kissed many. My lips were numb at that point, really. So I can't really remember exactly what that moment was like for me. But it was also just a bit of fun. Like, there wasn't any romance to it. It's not like there was any. I was just having fun. I was just
Oh,
having a camp time for my
were you
birthday.
good at telling the difference then when you were 19?
God, no, not really. I was always that person who was like, they're in love with me. We're getting married.
Oh, yeah, totally. They brushed my hand. How could they not be in love with
Yeah,
me?
yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly. That was so who I was. I was like, he gave me my coffee order. He must be obsessed with me. That was me. I was like head over heels for like if you showed me any interest, I was like, right, you're the one. You know what I mean? But I knew that was just a bit of fun that night. I think it was also me as well. Like I was just there to have fun. I wasn't going to kiss someone and be like, oh, love of my life. But any other time, that probably was the case, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And so by the time that it stopped being a party and it had its like big final hurrah, were you still going regularly or had you moved on?
No, I think I had moved on to probably first of all, the friends that was going with, we had kind of drifted apart. Nothing really happened, but it was just one of those things where we grow up. All of those people that I went out with on my 19th birthday, like pretty much all of them were no longer in my life, just for reasons of they've moved away, they've got new jobs, it's all of that sort of stuff. It's like we're growing up, we're doing different things. And I was still going kind of regularly, but not regularly enough to even know about the closure until after it had closed.
Oh,
So I remember it
oh.
being closed and me being like, oh my gosh. It was shocking, but also I think that we were past the point of caring, to be honest. Like, I think we had been removed from it for long enough that it really didn't change our life because, if we were still going every week, I feel like I would have been devastated. But I was like, oh, that's so sad. And I think it's like one of those you don't know what you got till it's gone situations because I obviously appreciated and loved it and loved being there and it was fabulous. But it wasn't until it ended that I was like, damn, that like really sucks because I really loved that place. And now I think about now myself 10 years later and I'm like, what I would give to have one more night at Hot Damn. The things I'd do, the crimes I'd commit if it meant I could have one more night at Hot Damn riding that mechanical penis and
I'm pretty sure you
just
can hire a mechanical penis. I mean, like if this helps at all.
I know. Well, I do have one in the cupboard, but I just don't know. I just don't know whether it's the same as like being in that environment and having that much fun
Mm,
the way that I
mm.
did.
Do you have any memories of hot damn, or clubbing from your own scene that you want to share? Well, if you do, I would love to hear all about it, so why not get in touch? I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories of queer clubbing, but I can't do it alone and I need your help. Go to lostspacespodcast.com, find the section Share a Lost Space, and then tell me all about what it is you did and with who. And if there are photos, then I would gladly receive those. You can also reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, where my handle is Lost Spaces Pod. Whilst you're there, find out more about Matt by following him on Instagram at allrighthey, or listen to his new podcast, High Scrollers. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate if you took the time to subscribe, leave a review on your podcast platform of choice, or just tell other people who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen too. My name's Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.